Hi, everyone. Today I'm standing in the middle of a silent, air-conditioned boardroom, fluorescent lights humming above, my boss's words still echoing in my ears like an insult hurled across a canyon. "If you're not happy here," he says, calm as ever, "the door's right there." I don't yell, I don't flinch, I just breathe. Because what Kellen, our new VP of Operations, doesn't know is that I've already found the key. Not just to the door, but to burn the whole damn building down. So before you listen, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments. Now, let's ease into the story together. I'm Melina Tran. I gave that company 7 years. 7 years of strategy meetings that ran past midnight, client calls during weddings and funerals, birthdays skipped, and weekends blurred into reports and red lines. I wasn't just another employee. I was the spine of our creative team, the pulse behind our most successful digital campaigns. But none of that mattered the day Kellen showed up. You know the type. Smooth haircut, tailored suits that screamed power, and a smile that could cut glass. Corporate fixer, they called him. Hired by the board to tighten up operations. What they didn't say was that he was the kind of man who made people shrink when he entered a room, especially women. The first time we met, he glanced at my outstretched hand, ignored it, looked me over, and smirked. "You're Melina, huh? Thought you'd be taller." I laughed. Big mistake. Because Kellen didn't like people who laughed at him, or worse, who didn't take him seriously. He moved fast. Within 2 weeks, 3 senior team leads were let go. Budget cuts, meetings about redundancy, policy shifts wrapped in buzzwords. But the truth was obvious. Kellen wanted control. The kind that doesn't tolerate pushback or pride. And I was both. I asked questions, defended my team, spoke directly to clients who trusted me more than anyone else on the org chart. Executives listened to my insight, not his. That made me a threat, and Kellen hated threats. The tension built slowly, like steam in a sealed pipe. Passive-aggressive jabs in meetings, subtle digs masked as feedback, cutting me from email chains. At first, I stayed quiet, observing, waiting, because I wasn't scared. I was calculating. The moment that changed everything came in a Friday strategy session. I challenged a new rollout that would gut our engagement pipeline. Kellen cut me off mid-sentence and dropped the line that would mark the beginning of his end. "If you're not happy here, the door's right there." I stood quietly, gathered my notebook, my phone, the mug my intern gifted me last year, and I walked out. No slamming doors, no grand declarations. But that silence, that walk down the corridor, it thundered. By Saturday morning, my inbox looked like a wildfire had passed through it. Teammates, clients, even folks I barely knew, all asking variations of the same thing. "Are you okay? What happened in that meeting? Please tell me you're not quitting." And then came the one message that snapped everything into focus. "Just so you know, Kellen told the execs you're taking personal time to cool off. He's transferring your accounts to Rachel, temporarily." Rachel, the fresh-faced assistant he promoted 2 weeks after meeting her. The one who thought a CPM was a health supplement and couldn't finish a slide deck without Googling acronyms. But she laughed at his jokes and called him Kel. I didn't reply, not yet. Because I knew what this was. They thought I'd come crawling back, that I'd blink first, that the silence would break me. But I don't break. Monday morning, I walked back in, calm, smiling. I wore black. Not because I was mourning, but because I wanted to look like the funeral had already happened. My keycard still worked, but my desk? Rachel had moved in. My project dashboards, locked. Calendar, cleared. I'd been wiped from the system like I never existed. No HR meeting, no email from Kellen, no official communication at all. Just the unspoken expectation that I'd slink away, humiliated. But I don't slink. Instead, I took my personal laptop and parked myself in the back conference room, the one with the glass walls and too much light. I claimed it like an office and sat like a queen in exile. I watched. I listened. I observed the empire they tried to rebuild on the ashes of my work. And I waited. One by one, people stopped by. A copywriter, a client contact, even someone from the executive floor. Are you leaving? Do you need help? What really happened? I answered honestly. No drama, no rumors, just facts. And here's the thing about facts. They don't need to scream. They whisper just loud enough to make people think. By Friday, I knew what I had to do. Not retaliate, not beg, not explode. Move forward. So when Kellen finally called me into his office, smug behind his desk, leaning back like he'd won, I was already holding my resignation letter. You've had a good run, Melina, he said, but things are changing. Maybe it's time to move on. I smiled. You're right, I have had a good run, but I don't move on. I move forward. I placed the letter on his desk, and I walked out. Again. But this time, I walked out with a plan. The moment I stepped outside, the sun hit my face like a quiet applause. It was one of those strangely peaceful days. No wind, just light. And yet, I felt something shift beneath the surface. Not fear, not regret. Relief. Like I'd dropped a 100-pound lie I'd been carrying on my back. I didn't go home to sulk. I went home to build. But before I get to that part, let me take you back to the office. Because yes, I did return one more time. Not to beg, not to reclaim a title, but to observe. Because while they thought I was retreating, I was actually doing reconnaissance. Monday morning, I walked in like nothing happened. Neutral expression, calm gait. The kind of presence that makes people unsure if they misread the situation. I nodded at reception, swiped my badge, walked past my own desk, Rachel's desk now, apparently. She didn't make eye contact, probably didn't expect to see me again. Or maybe she was hoping I wouldn't notice the iced coffee sitting right where I used to keep my photos. It didn't matter. What mattered was this. My dashboard access had been revoked. My name was scrubbed from the project timelines. My calendar, empty. I wasn't just sidelined, I was strategically erased. No email, no call from HR, not even a hey, let's catch up from Kellen. Just this cold, deliberate purge, as if I'd never existed. Like they were daring me to walk away without closure. And let me tell you, there's something deeply insulting about being ghosted by an entire company you helped build. So I found a quiet corner, the back conference room, floor-to-ceiling glass, clear view of the war zone that used to be my team. And I sat down, opened my personal laptop, connected to the guest Wi-Fi, and started taking notes. Kellen strutted by several times, not once acknowledging my presence. Rachel offered awkward half-smiles whenever she passed, like she wasn't sure if she should be proud, guilty, or afraid. I just sipped my tea and kept typing. What I was doing, truthfully, was watching a machine come apart. Without me, campaign rollout slowed. Client emails went unanswered. Feedback loops were delayed or skipped entirely. They didn't see it right away, of course. The outer structure was still standing, but the inside? Hollow. I didn't interfere. I didn't make a scene. I watched, I waited, and I listened. Every day that week, someone stopped by. Alex, one of the senior designers. This place feels weird without you in charge. Tori from Partnerships. I heard you left, but you're here. Even Oscar from IT. Hey, do you still want a backup of your files? Each time I answered calmly, I'm just finishing up. Just observing. Just here. Because nothing rattles power like a woman who doesn't flinch, who doesn't beg, who just watches. Friday rolled around, and I knew something was brewing. Kellen hadn't said a word all week, but he knew. He knew I wasn't broken, that I wasn't going away. And that scared him more than any resignation letter ever could. That afternoon, I got the summon. Melina, can you come to my office? Sure, Kel. I walked in, calm as still water. He leaned back in his leather chair, all polished charm and fake concern. Look, you've had a good run here, but we're moving in a different direction. Maybe it's time you did too. I smiled. I already had my resignation letter printed, signed, folded neatly in an envelope. "You're right," I said. "I have had a good run, but I don't move on. I move forward." I slid the envelope across the desk. He didn't touch it right away. Maybe he expected a different ending. Tears, a tantrum, a breakdown. But all he got was a woman who refused to fall apart. When I walked out that second time, it was quiet again. But this time, that silence was mine, not theirs. And here's the thing most people don't realize. Sometimes the most powerful move isn't making noise. It's stepping back. Because silence doesn't mean surrender. Silence means strategy. That weekend, I didn't mourn. I didn't spiral. I planned. By Sunday night, I had a list. Contacts, tools, files, access points. Everything I needed to launch something new. Something that didn't just challenge what they built, but exposed it for the house of cards it really was. Because here's what Kellen never bothered to ask. Who actually owned the system his whole team relied on? Who held the keys to the kingdom? Spoiler alert, it wasn't him. It was me. See, a few years ago, long before Kellen showed up in his expensive loafers and budget-cutting agenda, I built something, a tool, a system called Pulse Track. Think of it like a digital heartbeat monitor for online content. It didn't just track likes and clicks, it learned from them, predicted engagement patterns, adjusted timing, suggested tone and even language. It was like having a sixth sense for what would go viral. And it worked. Our campaigns started outperforming competitors by up to 40%. Clients stayed, contracts extended, and everyone praised the team for its innovation. But the truth? I built Pulse Track on my own time, after hours, weekends, late nights fueled by green tea, and a relentless desire to make something better. And the legal department never bothered to secure the IP. So I did. It was registered in my name, maintained by me, improved by me, and most importantly, never signed over to the company. They used it, relied on it, bragged about it in sales decks, but they never owned it. And now that I was gone, they were still using it. That was their first mistake. Their second mistake? Underestimating how many people were still loyal to me. Because while Kellen was busy playing politics, I was busy building trust. Not just in the boardroom, but in real relationships, with clients, with partners, with colleagues who remembered the late nights and the saves. And Monday morning, those people started calling. The first call came at 8:42 a.m. sharp. "Melina, I heard the news. Is it true? You're out?" It was Carla, head of digital for a luxury skincare brand we'd worked with for years. She was one of the few clients who'd insisted I be in every strategic meeting, who would casually bypass account managers and send emails directly to me with subject lines like "real talk" and "need your brain." I confirmed it with a steady voice. "Yeah, I've moved on." A long pause. Then, "So, are you available?" By noon, I'd spoken with 3 different brands. Not just clients, advocates, allies, people who'd seen the work, not the politics, who didn't care what title I had, only that I delivered, who asked the same question. "Do you still have access to Pulse Track?" I did. "Would you consider consulting?" I would. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't just walking away from a company. I was walking toward an opportunity that had been quietly waiting for me all along. Now, I wasn't naive. I knew the path forward wasn't going to be easy. There would be red tape, contracts, a legal mess Kellen would definitely try to escalate. But I also had something he didn't: leverage. Because they weren't just using my IP without permission. They were dependent on it. It had been baked into every system, every forecast, every strategy they still claimed as proprietary. They'd assumed I wouldn't fight, that I'd retreat quietly, that I was just another emotional woman who couldn't handle corporate pressure. They forgot who they were dealing with. By Friday, I had filed for a new LLC. Clean name, clean logo, sleek little landing page with nothing flashy, just credibility, clarity, and contact. Melina Tran Consulting, data-driven growth, human-first strategy. Tagline, built to outperform, backed by Pulse. And beneath it all, every optimization, every insight, every schedule was powered by Pulse Track, my Pulse Track. Of course, I couldn't publicly say that yet, not until I secured my legal footing. But I didn't need to brag. I just needed to exist. And oh, how that bothered them. The first sign came through a mutual connection in HR, whispers that Kellen had called an emergency ops meeting. Apparently, he was furious that clients were being poached, that our systems might be compromised. No, Kel, not compromised. Reclaimed. The second sign, a note from Rachel of all people, a single-line email. Hey, I didn't know Pulse was yours, sorry. I didn't respond. Because sorry doesn't mean much when it follows complicity. Instead, I did what I always do, focused on the work, quietly, precisely, intentionally. By the following week, I'd signed 2 short-term contracts with clients looking to experiment, outside traditional agency boundaries. I helped them restructure their content calendar, ran a full campaign analysis using PulseTrack's prediction engine, and within days, their engagement metrics surged. I didn't send a press release, didn't brag on LinkedIn, but the clients did. And that's when I got the call. No number, no caller ID, just a voice I recognized instantly. Kellen. He didn't say hello, he didn't ask how I was. He opened with, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I almost laughed. I don't think there's been a misunderstanding at all, I replied, polite but surgical. You're using a system you don't own, trying to erase someone you couldn't control, and now that it's unraveling, you want to talk. A pause. Then, carefully, Melina, if this becomes public, it won't look good for either of us. There it was, the veiled threat, the desperate pivot, the panic under the polish. I smiled to myself, even though he couldn't see it. Then maybe you should have thought of that before you told people I needed time to cool off. Click. No more calls after that. But that's when I knew we were officially at war. And I don't mean petty social media drama kind of war. I mean legal filings, intellectual property battles, strategic dismantling kind of war. So I lawyered up. Quietly, efficiently, brought in someone who specialized in tech IP enforcement. Explained everything when I built PulseTrack, how I registered it, the lack of transfer agreements. And together we drafted a cease and desist. Formal, precise, razor sharp. It was addressed to the legal department of my former company and CC'd to every executive who'd ever sat through a quarterly review, bragging about PulseTrack's innovative DNA. The letter outlined proof of authorship, patent filings, copyright registrations, licensing terms never honored, and a firm demand, cease all use of PulseTrack within 72 hours or face litigation. We sent it on a Monday, 9:02 a.m. sharp. Then we waited. I expected panic, some desperate attempt to negotiate, maybe even a smarmy message from Kellen trying to smooth things over. Instead, silence. Until Thursday afternoon, when I finally received a response. A cold legal dismissal. After internal review, we find no evidence of IP infringement. This matter is considered resolved. We wish you the best in your future endeavors. Translation, we're betting you don't have the guts or the money to fight us. And for a second, I sat there wondering, had I miscalculated? Then I remembered something my mentor once told me in my first year in corporate. Sometimes they count on you going quiet. Your greatest weapon is staying loud. So I didn't yell. I escalated. Escalation didn't mean rage. It didn't mean calling out names or storming buildings. It meant precision. It meant strategy. It meant collecting everything. I opened my files, every version of PulseTrack's development history, every Git commit, every changelog. The original design notes still had timestamps from weekends. Emails to myself with subject lines like Pulsar concept sketch and try refactoring this loop. It wasn't just a digital paper trail. It was a bulletproof story of authorship. And then, like clockwork, help started arriving, not in grand gestures, but in screenshots. First, it was Jenna. Jenna had once been Kellen's rising star, the junior analyst he'd tasked with modernizing internal tools. I knew she was smart. I also knew she was torn. But one day my inbox lit up. Subject: I think you should have this. Attached were 2 damning files. An internal email thread with Kellen instructing his team to replicate PulseTrack's core features. A Zoom clip, grainy, low-res, but clear as day. Kellen laughing, saying, "She walked away. No one's gonna dig into it." I read the thread 3 times. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I was past anger. I was focused. I packaged everything: the original IP documentation, the codebase comparisons, the email thread, the Zoom snippet. Then I reached out to someone who could actually amplify it. Lena Duarte, senior tech journalist at Digital Insider Weekly. She had interviewed me 3 years ago when PulseTrack had quietly started outperforming major competitors. She liked clean stories with messy truths. I sent her a message. "Lena, remember when you asked if PulseTrack would ever go public? I think it's time we had that conversation." She called me within an hour. "Melina, this is huge, like whistleblower huge. Can I run this?" I told her yes, with one condition. "I'm not ready to go fully public. Not yet. No photos, no flashy headlines with my face. Just facts." She understood. Let the evidence speak. And, oh, did it? The article dropped on a Tuesday. Headline in bold: "Ex-employee accuses media firm of IP theft," and she brought receipts. It blew up. The screenshots, the code comparisons, the emails. They weren't just convincing, they were explosive. LinkedIn lit up with shares. Industry subreddits dissected every paragraph. Twitter's tech side called it the clearest case of corporate theft in years. And my inbox? Flooded. Former colleagues, some I hadn't spoken to in years, sent messages like, "Always knew something was off," or "Proud of you for standing up." But of course, not everyone was supportive. The trolls came too. "She's just bitter. Why didn't she say anything sooner?" Typical emotional overreaction. And then inevitably came his response. Kellen posted a polished, airbrushed statement on LinkedIn. "In times of success, there will always be those who try to tear you down. We stand by our work and our incredible team. Integrity always wins." Hundreds of likes, dozens of comments calling him graceful, strong, stoic. And for a moment, I felt the tide shift again. The story was slipping. That night, I stared at my whiteboard, covered in flowcharts and timelines. I had the proof. I had the press. I had the patent. But somehow, it felt like none of it mattered. Then, at 2:13 a.m., a message came through Signal. No name, no profile picture. Just this: "I used to work for them. I have something you need to see." Attached, screenshots, invoices, devlogs, memos. They had paid a third-party developer to clone PulseTrack, months before I'd even left. The internal code name, Project Echo. They'd never planned to innovate. They planned to steal. And now I had the final piece. I took a long, slow breath. My tea had gone cold. My eyes were dry. But I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Control. They thought they could bury me, that silence would work in their favor. But silence? It was just me getting into position. That Friday, the company held an all-hands meeting. Kellen on stage. The usual charisma dialed up to 11, talking about vision, transparency, a new era. I watched from the live stream. Then I saw something that made my entire week. Midway through his slide deck, someone raised a hand. I couldn't see the face clearly, but I recognized the voice. "Jenna," she asked calmly, "how do we justify using a platform built by someone we no longer employ?" He froze for a full 2 seconds, then deflected. Jenna didn't push. She didn't need to. The room was already watching. And sometimes, watching is enough. The following Monday, I launched Phase 2, a full legal claim backed with timestamps, witnesses, original documentation, and now, Clear evidence of premeditated cloning. Kellen wanted to play dirty. He hadn't met my kind of dirty. Because I don't scream. I document. I don't rage. I strategize. And most of all, I don't back down. When you send a cease and desist, you expect one of two things, a fast apology or a faster counterpunch. I got neither. Just silence. 3 days passed. No word, no lawyer speak, no frantic email with urgent in all caps. Just the eerie quiet of a company pretending nothing was wrong, like ignoring me would make me disappear. And then finally the response arrived. A cold clinical email from their legal department. After internal review, we find no evidence of intellectual property infringement. This matter is considered resolved. We wish you the best in your future endeavors. It was so condescending I had to read it twice. No evidence? Did they miss the code comparisons, the internal emails, the dev logs, the actual patent with my name printed on it like a neon sign? And resolved? That word. It was a knife disguised as a handshake. I didn't rage, didn't throw things. I drank a glass of water, sat down, opened my laptop, and escalated. This time, I sent everything to Lena, the journalist from Digital Insider Weekly. Not just the public-facing material, no. I sent the full arsenal, the raw code. The email with Kellen's voice saying, "She walked away, no one's going to dig into it." The third-party invoice trail showing their quiet little side project, Project Echo. And then I included something new, a screen recording, dated and watermarked, of me walking through the pulse track backend. My voice explaining each line of the predictive algorithm, how I built it, and how their clone system was nearly identical, except less accurate. I ended the video with a calm sign-off. You can steal my work, but you can't steal what you don't understand. Lena messaged me back the same night. Holy hell, this is beyond big. This is the story. I told her she could publish everything, my name, my face, my side of it all. No more hiding, because I finally understood something Kellen never would. There's a difference between being loud and being heard. And I was ready to be heard. The article dropped on a Wednesday morning, prime traffic hour, headline in bold. She walked out quietly, now she's taking back everything they stole. It exploded. People shared it like wildfire, LinkedIn, Reddit, Twitter, Discord servers I'd never heard of. Screenshots of internal chats, hashtag threads, even TikTok commentary breaking down my patent like it was the Zapruder film. The messages came pouring in. Thank you for speaking up. This just gave me the courage to quit. They always said you were the real deal. But not every message was kind. The trolls returned, louder this time. She's just bitter. Probably embellished the whole thing. This is why we don't hire emotional women. And then came the PR stunt. Kellen posted a photo on LinkedIn of himself and Rachel shaking hands, smiling. Caption: Proud of the incredible innovations our team has created. We rise above distraction. Forward, always. The post got over 1,000 likes. Executives from other firms chimed in with clapping emojis. Leadership at its finest, one wrote. It was infuriating, but also predictable. Because for every lie he posted, I had another layer of truth waiting. The following day, I received another anonymous message. No name, but familiar tone. Check your inbox, you'll want this. Attached were Slack transcripts, real-time discussions from the dev team at my former company, discussions about duplicating PulseTrack before I left, about modifying just enough code to avoid detection, about removing my name from presentations and pitching it as their internal tool. One message read, "She's gone, no one's going to audit us." Another said, "Let's just rename it, Echo or something, doesn't matter." I forwarded everything to Lena. She called me immediately. We need to go bigger. And we did. The follow-up article hit on Friday. It didn't just revisit the IP theft. It exposed the culture behind it. Kellen's treatment of women, his pattern of discrediting and replacing strong performers, the sudden exits, the HR complaints that disappeared. The headline said it all. Inside the empire, how a media giant silenced its best talent. And this time, the reaction was seismic. Board members were tagged. Investors issued statements. Former employees started speaking out. On Twitter threads, in DMs, on podcasts. One post from a junior strategist went viral. He told me I was smart, but not leadership smart. I believed him, until today. Within 72 hours, the damage control began. The company posted a vague message. We take these allegations seriously. We are conducting an internal review. Which in PR speak translates to, we got caught and now we're scrambling. I wasn't done. I released a public statement of my own, a quiet 3-minute video. Just me, seated in my home office, no makeup, no dramatic music. I looked directly into the camera and said, when they told me the door was open, I walked out. But I didn't walk away empty-handed. I walked out with the truth. And the truth has a way of echoing, louder than anything else. The clip gained over 1 million views in 3 days. Kellen, silent. Rachel deleted her LinkedIn. The company, no longer untouchable. By the following Monday, I received a formal letter. Not from Kellen, from the board. Effective immediately, Kellen Rhee has been terminated. We are entering into a licensing agreement for PulseTrack with its original creator, Melina Tran. They didn't use the word apology. They didn't need to. Because when the house of cards falls, what matters isn't the noise it makes. It's who's still standing when the dust clears. The NYC Creators Conference was the biggest annual event in our field. An electric mix of ego, innovation, and networking desperation packed into one luxury venue with way too much glass and not enough outlets. I'd been invited months earlier, long before Kellen's coup, before PulseTrack became a buzzword for the wrong reasons. My topic had been locked in for weeks: innovation through ethical design. The irony was almost too poetic. I'd debated pulling out. The media whirlwind had just started to settle. My name was still trending in some corners of the internet. A part of me wondered if stepping onto that stage would reopen everything I'd just begun to heal from. But then I thought, no. This wasn't about wounds. This was about weapons. And the truth? That's the sharpest one I had. I flew in the night before, barely slept, reviewed my slides over chamomile tea in a hotel bathrobe. I didn't rewrite the talk, but I did add one new slide, one that would hit like a brick through a stained glass window. The next morning, the air was charged. People weren't just attending the talk, they were waiting for it. Whispers followed me in the lobby, not cruel, just curious. Is that her? Is she really going to speak? I heard she brought receipts. I wore a simple navy blazer and no jewelry. I wanted nothing that sparkled, except my clarity. When I entered the backstage area, the coordinator smiled too wide. You're trending, just so you know. I nodded. She handed me the clicker. And then the host's voice filled the ballroom. Please welcome our final speaker before lunch, Melina Tran. Polite applause. I walked out slowly, not hesitant, deliberate. And there, in the very back row, sitting like a stain on a pristine tablecloth, was Kellen. He wasn't scheduled to speak. He wasn't even listed as an attendee. But there he was, arms crossed, that same calculating smirk on his face. Waiting to see how far I'd go. I took the podium, clicked once. Slide 1, Innovation through Ethics. I smiled. When we talk about innovation, we often mean disruption, speed, and efficiency. But too rarely do we talk about integrity, about what happens when innovation becomes imitation, when strategy becomes theft. Silence. Slide 2, a patent number, US 874233X9A, PulseTrack. Owner, Melina Tran. A few murmurs. Slide 3, a side-by-side comparison of PulseTrack's original codebase and Project Echo, the company's so-called new system. Identical logic trees, identical algorithmic flow, even the same variable names. Then came the emails, forwarded by Jenna, the infamous Slack logs, the screenshot where someone wrote, "Let's just rename it, doesn't matter." And finally the quote, a still frame from the Zoom call, Kellen laughing. She walked away. No one's going to dig into it. I looked out at the audience, calm, measured. I gave them every opportunity to make it right. They chose silence, then erasure. But you can't erase code. You can't erase patents. And you absolutely can't erase the truth. Silence. Then applause, not polite, not formal. Visceral. The kind that erupts from somewhere primal. When I stepped off the stage, people stood. Not everyone, but enough. Some clapped. Some nodded solemnly. Others just watched me like I'd stepped out of a story they'd been waiting to see told. And Kellen? He was gone. Didn't even stick around for the Q&A. By the time I made it back to the green room, Lena had already texted me. The clip's already trending. In the next hour, LinkedIn flooded with tags. People reposting the speech with captions like, This is why we protect creators. Melina Tran just taught a masterclass in quiet power. She didn't throw a punch, she threw a blueprint. And it didn't stop there. 2 days later, the company released an official statement. Effective immediately, Kellen Rhee has been terminated. We have entered into a licensing agreement with Melina Tran, original developer of Pulse Track. An internal review is ongoing. There it was, not vindication, not revenge. Reclamation. And it rippled outward. Jenna got promoted. A handful of former employees wrote public posts detailing the culture of dismissal, the unspoken rules of silence. One wrote, "He told me I wasn't leadership material. I believed him, until I saw Melina speak." Another, "I thought I was alone in what I felt. Turns out I was just unheard." 3 major clients pulled their contracts with the company by week's end. Not because I asked them to, not because I lobbied, but because truth has gravity. And when it starts pulling, people move. Kellen didn't release another statement. He didn't apologize, but I did get one final notification. A LinkedIn request. From him. No message, just the request. I stared at it for a long time. Didn't accept, didn't decline. I let it sit there, a fossil of everything he thought he could get away with. Because power doesn't belong to those who yell in boardrooms. It belongs to those who walk away and come back with the match. 6 months later, I received an invitation that didn't come through email or LinkedIn. It arrived in a white envelope, delivered by hand. Inside, a simple card. "You've been selected as this year's recipient of the Vanguard Award for Ethical Innovation in Media. We would be honored if you joined us at the annual gala." I sat on the couch for a long time, holding that card like it might disappear. Not long ago, I'd been erased, quietly replaced, dismissed by a man who thought power lived in his title and not in the work. Now I was being called to the stage, not as a whistleblower, not as a survivor, but as a leader. I didn't need to accept the award. I didn't need their applause or validation. But I said yes, not out of vanity, out of quiet defiance. Because when you've been told you don't belong enough times, simply showing up becomes revolutionary. The night of the gala, I wore a black dress with clean lines. No designer label, no stylist, just me, no PR handler, no entourage. Jenna came with me, of course. She wore white, a sharp pantsuit, and the calm pride of someone who no longer waited for permission to speak. We arrived early. The ballroom sparkled with crystal and ambition. Industry leaders clustered in circles. I saw people I'd once presented to in conference rooms, people who'd shaken Kellen's hand and ignored mine. Now they turned toward me when I passed. Some smiled, some nodded, some stared like I was a storm wearing heels. During dinner, I kept mostly quiet. I wasn't there to network. I wasn't there to pitch or charm. I was there because someone decided I should be. And finally, when the MC called my name, the room hushed. I walked up to the podium, steady. Spotlights warm on my skin, applause humming beneath my feet. I looked out over the crowd and began. They told me the door was open if I didn't like it. So I walked out. What they didn't expect was that I wouldn't stay out. That I'd walk back in, not to reclaim my seat, but to flip the entire table. The audience erupted. But I wasn't done. This award isn't about me. It's about every person who's been underestimated. Every woman whose ideas were stolen. Every junior employee told to stay quiet. Every outsider who was right too early to be believed. Sometimes walking away isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the most strategic move you can make. Because the truth, it doesn't need permission, it just needs room to burn. That was it. No dramatic mic drop, no rehearsed smile. I left the stage the same way I'd entered, head high, feet steady, heart calm. Later that night, as Jenna and I stepped into the cool night air, she nudged me gently. "You never asked who nominated you." I blinked. "Was it you?" She shook her head. "Nope, but I found out." She handed me her phone. An email sent 6 months ago. Anonymous. She may not ask for credit, but she deserves the world to see what she stood for. She didn't just walk out. She walked forward, and she built something they couldn't ignore. No signature, just the words. And that was enough. Because here's the truth I've carried with me ever since. Power isn't something they hand you. It's something you take back, quietly, strategically, and unapologetically. And if they try to erase you, you don't scream. You don't beg. You build. You build something so undeniable that even the people who tried to silence you are forced to listen. And you leave the door they opened behind you, burning.